unexpectedly losing my eyesight in my right eye in 2015, it actually ended up giving me the courage to kind of lean into that a little bit more.
Kanoa Greene, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. To start, for everyone who's listening or watching, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, originally born in Hawaii, in Honolulu, and early on moved to Orlando, Florida. So literally when I tell people I grew up at Disney World, I really did. That's why when I sing, I burst out into song randomly, and I think it's the effects of that. Went to school to pursue opera. That was kind of the trajectory I was on since high school, and pursued that for undergrad and graduate, and really thought that I was going to do that for a long time, and then actually decided at the end of grad school that I didn't think that was the route for me. Being in academia, you lose some of that spark and dazzle behind that, and just getting into the career of it. So I moved to New York City because that's where all artists go, and I fell into a corporate career as an in-house recruiter for a great advertising agency, and it exposed me to a lot of skills that I hadn't been exposed to as an opera singer. Met a lot of incredible people. Just the city of New York City in of itself was so different from Orlando and was just vibrant, and I absolutely loved it. But in that corporate setting, I realized that I wanted something different. I had tried music and I had such a love and a passion for it, and I did find a lot of fulfillment in the corporate world, but I felt like I wanted to return back into something that I love, and I didn't really know what that was at that point in my life, but I took the leap anyway and just opened myself up to opportunities. And my only thing that I wanted to do was encourage women, and I didn't know where that would leave me, but it kind of opened a door into fitness. And after unexpectedly losing my eyesight in my right eye in 2015, it actually ended up giving me the courage to kind of lean into that a little bit more. And that's also when I discovered I had a love for the outdoors through that recovery process and just that process as a whole. And so now I do a combination of those. At the core of it, I absolutely encourage people all over the world through movement, whether that be in fitness or outdoor adventure.
That's incredible. Wow, and a lot to unpack. That's quite an adventure. What inspired you to make to start posting all of this on social media and to build your platform on Instagram? Are there any specific themes that you try to highlight for your audience?
For me, I said I had left the corporate space and I opened myself up to this world of fitness. And at that time, 2015, you didn't see the diversity that you see now in regards to fitness, in regards to different body diversity. So for me, being a plus size fitness trainer, that was something I didn't see. That for me, posting was just an opportunity for me to gather the community around me that I needed, that I didn't see. So that really was the goal behind it, and honestly, the motivation of if I can encourage just one other person out there, it means everything to me. So I took that leap in the hope of encouraging women, and so that's literally and to this day what I think about every time I'm putting content out there, anytime I'm jumping into a project, is this still staying true to why I initially did this? Even through the process of me losing my eyesight, I went through about 22 months of surgery. So in 22 months, I found myself being in this gray space of either going through a surgery, recovering from one, or getting prepped to go into one. And there was a lot of downtime where I had to recover and I wasn't allowed to move, right? I had to lay face down for days, weeks at a time. And I remember when I had those moments to move, I really was grateful for them. And I was able to identify that movement is an ability for my body to just do more. And I really leaned into that.
What is it like to have your multiple platforms? It looks like you have a personal page, but also am I saying this right? Nako Adventures account as well. Do you want to share a little bit about your second page, or is that how it's said, by the way?
Absolutely. Nakoa.
Nakoa.
Yes. It means daring and brave. Absolutely. That is in of itself one of the businesses that I own and founded. I was going out there and exploring adventure, being partially, visually impaired, partially blind. I started in that time kind of gathering courage to go out there and do things for the first time that I'd never done before, even when I had two perfectly, okay eyes. I was surfing, I was paddleboarding, I was hiking, and I was going out there and doing them as visually impaired and plus size, and we weren't seeing a lot of people talking about that in this space. And people would see me do these things and they're asking me, is there a place where I can do these things? Is there a safe space, a brave space for me as a plus size person to go out there and try surfing for the first time? And I remember going through and looking and searching, scouring the interwebs to try to find something. And at that time I didn't. That was 2018. And so that kind of, for me, I take personal responsibility. It's just, I don't want to be the person that comes back and says, I'm sorry, too bad for you. It was, can I find a solution? I may not have done this before, but I can do something. And so that's where, Nakoa kind of birthed itself, was creating these brave spaces to help people discover what they can do in their bodies, and that these adventures are absolutely accessible to them, regardless of shape, age, size, whatever that may be.
That's really inspiring, and thank you for doing that. I think that's super important. People, you see them fall into depression, they end up on the couch doing nothing, and then just feeling sorry for themselves, or wallowing. I mean, not all people, of course, but
right.
You have your certain percentage, and I think they should know that it doesn't matter if you're overweight, have an issue with an eye, plus size, missing a leg, missing an arm. Get out there and live, because you get one, well, as far as we know, one life. You may as well go out and experience the adventure. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
It's easier when you see somebody else doing it. It's like at a party, on the dance floor. You don't want to be that first person in, but once everyone's warming up, you're like, okay, like I can dance now.
Yeah,
I can
no
do
one
that.
ever wants to be the first one. No.
Right. And you need that person, so thank you for being the first person on the dance floor for everybody.
And in this community, it's even just the equipment, because I think that's the other thing, is people coming into this space. I remember the first time I wanted to surf in 2016, and I thought, you know what, I have the courage, I'm going to go out there and find a surf suit. And what I found was that there weren't any surf suits that were my size, right? And then you start to look into these other sports, and then you're like, oh, well, there's no hiking packs that are really made for my body either, or hiking shoes, or paddle boards. And so that was kind of also one of the big missions behind Nakoa Adventures, is we work with different brands, small and big, to try to get this gear out there, because in some instances it doesn't exist yet. And so how can I get out there and enjoy movement in my body if I don't even have the equipment that makes it safe and comfortable to do it? It's this idea that if you're a certain shape or weight, that you can't do those things. And I think a lot of times in a lot of cultures, we've kind of adopted that mindset of, oh, well, and you see it a lot of times even with, professional athletes who maybe are later in life and they've gained some weight, and then they automatically think, well, I can't do that thing. And I see that time and time again. And we've just conditioned ourselves. And that's what I thought, honestly. I grew up, again, Hawaii, Orlando, and I had access to a lot of outdoor sports, but I never ventured into them because I didn't see people that looked like me. I didn't see the gear that was out there for me. So I thought, oh, well, I just can't do it, until one day I just was like, well, I'm going to do it anyway and see what happens. And then I was like, wow, I actually can do these things. So it happens on both ends, and that's what Nakoa Adventure does, is we have to work at it from both ends, because, brands aren't going to make the surfboards for larger bodies if no one's out there doing it, but they don't know that they can do it, and they don't have the equipment to do it. So it's us really working from multiple angles to help make it accessible for everyone. I'm not out there trying to be the next competitive surfer. I just want to have fun with my friends, my family, and have a good time.
There's many levels between being like Michael Phelps and going for a swim, or
Right, exactly. There has to be a point where you draw the line in the sand. I mean, at this point for me, like I said, I'm 10 years into this journey, and at one point I really just had to make the decision. There were definitely times where I was scared. There were times when I didn't want to do it. There was times when it was very hard.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I know the feeling myself.
Right. But I made the decision before I took that first step of, I'm going to do it and I'm not going to stop. And I kept repeating that to myself. And then one day I finally got up and I did it. And I haven't stopped since. And I think those two in hand really help, because even, I still have the hard days. Life still happens. You still stumble.
Right.
And I go back to why I'm doing this journey, and that why ends up getting bigger and it grows deeper roots and it keeps driving me forward.
What are some different groups or people who have supported you through your challenges, and how did they help you?
I would say, definitely my circle of friends. I like to say that I think that's a superpower that I have. It's mutual, because I'm here to also lift them up. But that's been really important in the communities that I've leaned into in regards to outdoor adventure. When I stepped foot into surfing for the first time, I was really scared because I did not see people like me out there doing it. And I was thinking the first time I went out for a surf lesson, like, am I going to break the surfboard? You're just thinking of like really basic things here. And it was the community, the instructors, other surfers in the community who rallied around me through that process and really helped calm those fears and those doubts. They were there and they're like, just have a good time. And that was really hard for me because I felt the weight of the world on my shoulder. I felt like I had something to prove to myself and to other people that I can do it. And I let a little bit of that pressure get to me in those first few lessons until my instructor pulled me inside and said, it's just about having fun. Once I let go of that, all the pressure and all of the voices in my head, and just went out there to have fun. I was like slaying it. It was amazing. So, it really has been those people in those different sports. I'm going rock climbing next weekend. I fly out to Colorado, and that's another one. Rock climbing outdoors was new for me, just a couple of months ago, and it took just the people in that community, other professional rock climbers saying, it's good, you got it, you can do it, it's cool. So it really has been a lot of, athletes and adventurers out there. It's an incredible community. That's
great to hear, and I think you're absolutely right. You are like the sum of like the 5 people you hang out with most. I feel like I've heard that before somewhere. And you want to make sure that those people are at least positive, because that you don't want an energy vampire around you where it's like, oh, we can't do that because of this. You want the can-do attitude, because life is a lot more interesting when you say yes, I think, personally.
And those parts sometimes that you struggle with in your own, psyche, in your mind, and you find those people who are really thriving in that, and you're like, yeah, I need more of that in my life. And it really does enhance that within you, I have found.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Earlier you mentioned that there were days when you were less motivated with your fitness journey, but you had to push through. With social media, we tend to just see good days for people, and we're trying to break through some of that with the show. We want people to understand there's layers beneath all that. But do you think it can be challenging to balance, like in your particular situation with your channels, do you think it can be challenging to balance authenticity and creating a brand for your social media platforms?
Yeah, that's hard because, the reality is that that's not reality, not for anyone. And I think that's why it's been helpful to listen to podcasts for me and personal stories, because you do see all of these just incredible leaders and people around in this world, and they tell you like it's not, those that are brave enough to be honest about it, which I think a lot of them are. Just for me, it's realizing that everyone has struggles, even if they're presenting the most fantastic version of the happiest version of themselves. A lot of times we'll look at celebrities and we see that right on television, on their social media, in magazines. We're looking at the very best version of them in their happiest moments. But then when you hear those stories of them sharing that maybe they were going through a difficult time exactly when you saw that photo, right? Or exactly when they posted that thing. And I think that helps, hopefully, to kind of pull that back and realize you're not on an island by yourself. Every single person out there is going through life. Every single person has challenges. I think every single person deals with insecurities and doubts and fears. And I think once you can really open up your mind and accept that that is the reality of things, I think that helps. I live my space in social media, and I have for years, and I understand because you're taught that it has to be a curated page, right? You're curating this life that you're presenting out there. But you have to really pull that back and realize that that is not anybody's life all the time.
It's not all Disney trips and Bugattis all the time. I know.
It's not.
Have you had any moments of growth in your career that were most exciting to you that you'd like to share?
Ooh, that's hard. Being invited on to Good Morning America is kind of up there. Being the first plus size trainer to ever, at this point still, to ever be invited on the show is tremendous, because I didn't think I could inspire not even my best friend to move being a plus size person. And then to see that transition happen where I've seen essentially culture change. And that to me is the big thing, where it's not just we're seeing bodies being accepted in the gym, in the yoga classes, but now being celebrated as leaders in the fitness space. That to me is incredible, because the doors that opens, the hope that opens up for other people, the belief that opens for people, it tears down doubts and disbelief in people's minds when they start seeing that. And that now you're having the world essentially back that up. That has tremendous power. So that for me is one of them. And on the other side of that, I would say in my career, I think it's just honestly believing in myself. There at one point there was a flip that switch. The first 3 years, I honestly feel like I was being carried by my support system. And the people that were in this community that I was building. I was doing these things, but I still had a lot of doubt, of like, when is it all going to fall apart? When is it, right? Like, when are they going to shut the door on me and say, go away and we're done with this? But, after 3 years in and finally standing in my own confidence of, I do belong here. I do have something to say and share, and I do have magic to pour out into this world. That I think is the most important thing that has happened on this journey.
Absolutely. Thank you for spreading joy and positivity and inspiration to so many people. It's something that you can't get too much of. Speaking on that, what is a past project that you really enjoyed working on?
It would be my Kanoa adventures. The last one we just did in May was in Costa Rica. And it was the opportunity of bringing together multiple activities. So we did body surfing, board surfing, kayaking, paddle boarding, just, a diverse group of activities. We have a group of people who come together who have thought their whole life that they couldn't do these things, but maybe they had a dream. And a dream that they maybe had never told anyone, right? You see it and you're like, oh, that would be so cool if I did it, to be a surfer, to go surfing in Costa Rica. But then to have the courage to actually step out and do it and have a place to do it.
Looking ahead, what is a future project that you're excited about beginning? I know in your pre-interview, we remembered you mentioned 6 big adventures. Is there anything you'd like to share about those?
Yes, we're doing 6 next year, which is exciting. And you're honestly the first to kind of hear about some of them. We try to keep it under the wraps. This year we did.
We won't tell anyone except for everyone watching.
Right, except for everyone.
Between us and everyone.
Next year we get to introduce, rock climbing as an adventure that's out there. Aerial yoga, that's something that I became an aerial yoga instructor. The wild thing is, I think it actually makes yoga more accessible for larger bodies.
Aerial yoga? I'm sorry, pardon my ignorance. Are you jumping out of a plane and doing yoga? Is that what that is?
Aerial yoga, so using silks, like hammocks that are essentially rigged from the ceiling. I mean, you're thinking like extreme aerial.
That would be bonkers.
I didn't know I would need a parachute going into this yoga class.
Sorry about that.
We'll do surfing, hiking, and just amazing places around the world. So I love that we're getting to really open this up. And then in conjunction with that, it's really pushing forward on this, helping making the gear and the equipment that's needed more accessible. We talked about there being a lack, and when I started surfing in 2016 or wanted to, there wasn't any surf suits that would fit me. And now we're seeing that there's at least a dozen brands out there across the world that are doing this. And it just takes the force of Nakoa and other people in the community doing what they can to help make that happen. So that's a big vision for us moving forward when it comes to ski gear, snowboarding, more hiking that's happening, paddle boarding, stand-up paddleboard. We're getting really into the nitty-gritty of hopefully bringing more of that equipment into the market. Adventure sports have grown so much that the fact that you just put that out there, it actually may become a thing.
What would have been good to know? What would you, if you could go back in time and tell Kanoa Greene a message that you get to say one sentence, what would it be and why?
Your story matters. Period.
Wow, just 3 words. I love that. That's profound.
I felt this through different stages of my life where you think, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I am struggling. I am a mess. And you feel like you're not ready to share or impact or help or encourage other people or even yourself because it isn't what you've essentially said it has to look like. Right. And for me, I've been a hot mess the entire stage of this journey and this adventure called life. But to see that I've been able to, through sharing my story, even when I honestly didn't think that I had anything to really share that was inspiring, I shared it anyway, just because I was led to. And I have seen how planting that one seed has grown into a tree that has blossomed and that has bared fruit for other people, right? It has sprung into, spreading seeds and encouraging other people to grow their gardens and their trees. And it didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to know everything. I didn't have to know anything. I just had to be courageous enough to share whatever I had with wherever I was at that time, and knowing that it was good enough. So, your story matters. It doesn't matter where you are today or what's going on. It matters right now.
Absolutely. You matter. Kanoa Greene matters. Everyone matters. And you should feel that way about yourself 100%. I couldn't agree more. And thank you so much for coming to speak with us today and sharing everything that you do for being a light in the world and letting people know that they do matter and that they should be good to themselves and go out there and do the things they want to do. No excuses. Get out there and live.
Live your
and,
best
we
life.
appreciate you for coming to talk to us on the show and joining us on this Adventure TED Chat. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for everything that you do. Really, it makes a huge difference. Stay tuned for more Adventure TED Chat.